Aliens tried to study human prisons and became the test subjects. What if an alien empire tried to study human prisons and found out the hard way that the real experiment was on them? If you locked one human inside your most advanced, inescapable facility, would they try to break out, or would they calmly turn your prison into a weapon? Welcome back to Galactic Chronicles, where humanity is never the strongest, just the most dangerously adaptable. If you love HFY stories where humans outthink the galaxy, hit like, tap subscribe, and let's step inside the prison experiment that every alien government now swears never to repeat. Part 1, the experiment begins. The Thalshen Directorate ruled half a spiral arm with one obsession: control. They were not the biggest empire, nor the richest, but every citizen, every ship, every signal was tracked, logged, and cataloged in crystalline archives woven through their black-lacquered worlds. Control was survival. Chaos was death. And in every report about humanity, they saw only one word highlighted in red over and over again: uncontrollable. Humans broke blockades they should not have survived. They turned losing battles into legends. They escaped situations that, statistically, had no exits. The Directorate's answer was simple: if something cannot be controlled, it must be understood. And if it must be understood, it must be tested. So they built a prison. Not a crude cage of metal bars, but a behavioral lab, layered with sensors and environmental controls. Walls weren't just walls, they were data surfaces, reading heartbeats, tracking eye movement, logging footsteps. Every corridor could change gravity, light, even oxygen content at the command of the central overseer. They named it Containment Array 7. Internally, their archivists gave it a more honest label: the Human Variable Project. The plan was elegant and arrogant all at once. Step 1, isolate a single human subject. Step 2, expose them to a model prison based on human designs, but upgraded with Thalshen tech. Step 3, observe, record, and extract a theory of human containment that could be applied to future wars. There was only one problem they had not accounted for. They didn't pick a random human. They picked Dr. Elias Ward. Ward was not a soldier, not a pilot, not a spy. On paper, he was worse: a correction systems architect, an expert in human prisons, high-security facilities, and what governments politely called behavioral compliance infrastructure. In simpler language, he designed places where no one was supposed to escape, and the subtle systems that kept them from even trying. The Directorate identified him as a perfect subject, familiar with confinement but not a frontline war asset. Low political risk, high data yield, or so they thought. They took him on a quiet night between one planet-side consultation and his next shuttle flight. A light that wasn't light, a hum that wasn't sound, and Elias Ward vanished from a hotel room on a quiet blue world and awoke to darkness. Silent, then cold, clinical light flooded in. He found himself in a cell. 4 walls, one reinforced door with an inset viewport, a bed, a sanitation unit, and a table. No visible cameras, no vents big enough to squeeze through, no obvious mistakes. Ward sat up slowly, head pounding, and smiled. This, he murmured, is either a very good copy of a high-security remand cell or the worst idea anyone's had in a while. He stood, stretched, and did what no one in the Directorate predicted he would do first. He didn't scream. He didn't pound on the door. He didn't panic. He audited. In his world, every new facility began the same way, with a walkthrough. A quiet, methodical inventory of risks, flows, and failure points. He pressed his palm against the wall, smooth, slightly warm, faint vibration. Energy conduits probably behind the panel, no irregularities in temperature, no sag, no sound of hollow space. He clicked his fingers near the ceiling, listened. Sound came back flat, no obvious microphone clusters, at least nothing old-fashioned, which meant the whole room was likely one big sensor. He lay on the floor and stared up at the light panel, not because he thought he could reach it, but because he wanted to see if its luminosity fluctuated on a pattern. Artificial gravity held steady, no shift when he jumped, no wobble. He nodded slowly. Right, he said to nobody, so this isn't Earth, or if it is, the budget got a serious upgrade. The door remained shut. Behind it, in a monitoring chamber filled with pale blue holography, a cluster of Thal Shen observers watched him with vertical pupils and cold curiosity. "He is calm," one of them noted. "Expected," said Director Vale, their leader. Her silver carapace reflected the data streams like a living mirror. Humans compartmentalize, begin logging, subject baseline under shock. Ward rubbed his temples, then looked directly at one corner of the cell, a completely blank patch of wall. "Well," he said, "you went through a lot of trouble, so let's get one thing straight." He walked closer as if he could see the eyes behind the surface. "You kidnapped a security systems architect," he said quietly. "You didn't put me in a prison, you put me in a case study." He smiled, slow and dangerous. "And I don't do case studies from inside the file." He sat back down, folded his hands, and did something that truly startled the directorate. He waited. No pacing, no frantic probing, just calm, patient stillness. Waiting for the system to make the first move. Because in his world, the first one to move showed their strategy. Minutes passed. Lights dimmed and brightened as if testing his circadian rhythm. The bed adjusted subtly, temperature shifted by a fraction. Ward tracked each change. "They're mapping comfort response," he said under his breath, "trying to see what makes me restless, what keeps me docile, smart." He tilted his head. "Let's give them something to write down." When the food slot finally hissed open, an understated seam in the wall he had already guessed at, a tray slid into the room. Nutrient paste, water, a bland square of protein. Ward picked up the tray, inspected it like a museum piece, and then walked straight over to the sanitation unit. He dumped the protein square into the waste opening and washed the paste down after it. In the observation chamber, a dozen monitoring graphs spiked in confusion. "He is rejecting sustenance. Possible self-harm protocol. Humans deteriorate without food." Director Vale raised one hand. "Silence, watch." Ward took the empty tray back to the table and sat, folding his hands again. "Let's see," he said softly. "Are you optimizing compliance or logging non-compliance?" He knew exactly what he'd just done. Every system he'd ever designed had one shared flaw. It assumed the prisoners were trying to survive on the system's terms. So he just told the prison in its own language that he refused the terms. In doing so, he forced it to choose, escalate or adapt. Either way, it would reveal itself. And once something revealed its rules, he could start bending them. Mid-video CTA idea to drop in part 2 or before the main flip. If you're still here, you're one of the viewers this channel is built for. Hit like so the algorithm knows you enjoy HFY Sci-Fi, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what Elias does to this perfect alien prison next. Part 2 inside the lab. 3 days passed before the directorate made their next move. During that time, Elias Ward did nothing. He ate when they fed him, he slept in measured intervals, he kept his hands visible when drones passed. To the censors, he was a model subject. But inside his head, the audit never stopped. He counted footsteps in the corridor beyond his door. He tracked the rhythm of guard patrols, not by sight, but by the faint hum of energy fields shifting as they moved. He noted when the temperature dropped by half a degree, and when it rose again exactly 4 hours later. Everything had a pattern, and patterns could be mapped. On the 4th day, his door opened. No warning, no voice, just a soft hiss, and the seam in the wall peeled back to reveal a corridor bathed in pale violet light. A voice flat synthesized, emotionless, spoke from hidden speakers. "Proceed to the common area. Non-compliance will result in corrective measures." Ward stood slowly, stretched his shoulders, and walked out. The corridor was sleek and cold, lined with translucent panels that glowed faintly from within. Behind them, shadowy shapes moved, other cells, other prisoners. He counted 12 doors before the hallway opened into a larger space. The common area was a cruel mockery of freedom. It was open, yes, high ceilings, soft lighting, even a few benches and tables bolted to the floor. But the walls were smooth as glass, the exits sealed, and every corner bristled with surveillance nodes that tracked movement with mechanical precision. And it was crowded. Ward paused at the threshold, scanning the room. Roughly 30 inmates, maybe more, species he didn't recognize, hulking reptilian figures with ridged spines, insectoid beings with too many limbs, a few humanoids with skin like cracked stone. And in the far corner, hunched over a table with his back to the wall, was a figure Ward did recognize. A Quran. Tall, lean, armor-plated in organic chitin that had once been polished to a mirror sheen, but was now dull and scarred. His eyes were dim, his posture defeated. Ward filed that away. He moved slowly into the room, keeping his hands relaxed, his gait non-threatening. He wasn't trying to dominate, he was trying to read. Near the food dispenser, a massive creature, easily 3 meters tall, with arms thick as tree trunks, sat surrounded by a cluster of smaller inmates. It growled something in a low, rumbling tongue, and one of them scurried to bring it a ration pack. That's the alpha, Ward thought. Muscle, intimidation, control through fear. By the far wall, a thin, insectoid figure sat perfectly still, antennae twitching. Others glanced at it, whispered near it, but never touched it. Information broker, Ward noted. Eyes and ears, trades knowledge for favors. And then there was the Quran veteran, alone, staring at nothing. The broken one, the one who's given up. Ward chose a bench near the center, not too close to any group, not too isolated. Visible, but not a threat. He sat, folded his hands, and waited. Within minutes, the massive alpha turned its head and locked eyes with him. It rose. The room quieted. Ward didn't move. The creature lumbered over, each step shaking the floor, until it loomed directly over him, blocking out the light. It spoke in a guttural snarl that the prison's translation system rendered into flat, clinical words. You are new, you give half your rations, or you blight. Ward looked up slowly, met its gaze, and smiled. No, he said calmly. The creature blinked, confusion flickered across its face. No, it repeated. Ward leaned back slightly, casual, unbothered. You don't need my rations, you've got 6 others feeding you already. What you need is someone who can think. Silence. The creature's nostrils flared. You think I am stupid? I think you're predictable, Ward said, and predictable means you're useful to them. He gestured subtly to the ceiling, to the walls, to the watching eyes embedded in every surface. They want to see if you'll hurt me, they want data, violence spikes, stress responses, dominance hierarchies. He tilted his head. You play the role they expect, and you stay in here forever. The creature's fists clenched. Ward pressed on, voice quiet but sharp. But if you don't play the role, if you do something they don't predict, you stop being a test subject. You become a problem. He stood slowly, carefully, keeping his posture open. And problems, Ward said, get solved. The alpha stared at him for a long, tense moment. Then it grunted, turned, and walked back to its corner. No violence, no dominance display. Just compliance with a new idea. Behind the observation glass, Director Vale's eyes narrowed. Log that, she said coldly. Subject Ward just prevented the expected altercation. Query, how did a human assess dominance structure in under 5 minutes? Her assistant hesitated. Should we intervene? No, Vale said, let him continue. We are learning. Over the next few days, Ward moved carefully through the social landscape of the prison. He didn't try to lead, he didn't challenge authority, he just observed, and when he spoke in questions. To the insectoid broker, how long have you been here? Do the guards ever rotate shifts, or is it always the same pattern? To a small, nervous reptilian inmate, what happens if someone refuses to go back to their cell? Have you ever seen anyone move to a different block? To the Quran veteran sitting alone, you fought in the war, didn't you? The Quran didn't answer at first, but Ward sat beside him anyway, quiet, patient. Finally, the veteran spoke, voice hollow. I did, and I lost. Ward nodded, so did your empire, but you're still here. I am a prisoner. You're a data point, Ward corrected gently. They're studying you, studying all of us. That means they're afraid of what we can do. The Quran's eyes flickered. Ward lined in. If they weren't afraid, they wouldn't need to watch so closely. He let that sink in, then he stood and walked away. But the seed was planted. By the end of the first week, subtle changes began to ripple through the prison. The Alpha stopped demanding rations. Instead, he started distributing them, not randomly, but on a schedule Ward had quietly suggested. Fair splits reduce conflict, Ward had said. Less conflict means fewer interventions. Fewer interventions mean more freedom. The insectoid broker started withholding certain pieces of gossip, not out of malice, but because Ward had asked. What if you only shared information that confused them, made their models less accurate? The Quran veteran began sitting with others, listening, watching, remembering what it felt like to have purpose. And through it all, Ward never acted like a leader. He acted like a consultant. He didn't give orders, he asked questions. He didn't build loyalty, he built logic. And the directorate's data models began to fracture. Violence incidents down 40%. Stress metrics stabilizing. Hierarchy clarity deteriorating. Director Vale reviewed the reports with growing frustration. There is an organizing force, she said, but we cannot identify the control node. Her assistant pulled up Ward's activity log. Subject Ward has had contact with 17 individuals, no repeated interactions, no sustained alliances, no resource accumulation. Vale's claws tapped against the console. Then he is not lighting, he is seeding. She lined forward. Initiate protocol sever, introduce a stress event, force the system to collapse. We will see who holds it together and how. If you're still here, you're exactly the kind of viewer this channel is built for. Hit like so the algorithm knows you love HFY Sci-Fi, and make sure you're subscribed, because what Elias Ward does next is going to redefine what it means to flip a system from the inside. Part 3, stress test and flip. The lights went out at 400 station time. No warning, no alarm, just sudden, absolute darkness. Then the gravity shifted. Not gone, but wrong, fluctuating. One moment pulling hard toward the floor, the next releasing just enough to make movement disorienting, nausea-inducing. Shouts erupted across the common area, bodies stumbled, something metal clattered to the floor in the dark. And then the cold came. Temperature dropped fast, 10 degrees in 30 seconds, then another 10. Breath turned to mist, scales and skin that had adapted to controlled warmth now prickled with shock. This was Protocol Sever. The Directorate's designed chaos, cut the environmental supports, introduce instability, and watch the social structure crumble under pressure. See who panics, see who fights, see who tries to lead. And most of all, see if the human would break his cover. In the observation chamber, Director Vale watched the thermal overlays bloom with stress signatures. Increased duration, she ordered. I want sustained pressure, 12 hours minimum. Her assistant hesitated. Director, some species may not survive. Then we will learn their thresholds, Vale said coldly. Proceed. In the dark, Elias Ward sat perfectly still. He had felt the shift the moment it started, not just the lights and gravity, but the intent behind it. This wasn't a malfunction. This was a test. And tests had rules. He waited until the shouting peaked, until fear turned to anger, until the first sounds of violence began to spark in the corners. Then he moved, not toward the noise, toward the people. He found the Quran veteran first, gripping the edge of a table, breathing hard. Listen to me, Ward said quietly, voice cutting through the chaos. This is artificial, they want us to break, don't give them what they want. The Quran's eyes burned in the dim emergency glow that had started to flicker on. How do you know? Because if it were real, Ward said, they wouldn't still be watching. He pointed up. In the faint red emergency lighting, the surveillance node still glowed, faint but active. They're recording this, Ward continued, which means they expect something to happen, so we do the opposite. What is the opposite of chaos? Ward smiled grimly. Coordination. He moved through the room like a shadow, cell to cell, voice low and calm. To the massive Alpha. Get to the water dispenser, control access, no fights, just order. To the insectoid broker. Spread a rumor, tell half the room that help is coming from outside. Tell the other half this is a test for early release. To a cluster of terrified reptilians. Stay in this corner, don't move unless I tell you. Your job is to not panic. To a pair of aggressive inmates squaring off. You want to fight, fine, but do it later when they're not watching. Right now, you fight their script, not each other. One by one, the pieces moved into place. Not because Ward commanded them, but because he gave them purpose inside the chaos. Within 20 minutes, the noise began to drop. Not silence, but structure. Groups formed, resources were quietly secured. Movement became deliberate instead of frantic. And in the observation chamber, the data streams started to contradict each other. Stress hormone levels are decreasing, one analyst said, confused. Aggression markers dropping, another added. Violence incidents 2, expected incidents based on model 15. Director Vale's eyes narrowed, show me Ward. The screen zoomed in. He was sitting against a wall, hands folded, eyes half closed. Not moving, not commanding, not doing anything that looked like leadership. But every person he had spoken to was now acting with quiet coordination. He has turned them into a network, Vale whispered, without hierarchy, without visible authority. She leaned forward. Increase the pressure, cut food delivery, introduce visible guard presence, make them see force. The guards entered the common area in formation, 4 of them, encased in sleek black armor, faceless visors glowing faint blue. They moved through the room slowly, deliberately, scanning inmates. Occasionally one would shove someone aside, hard, no reason, just a show of power. It was a classic dominance tactic, remind the prisoners that force was always an option. But Ward had already prepared for this. He had whispered one instruction to the Quran veteran. When they push someone, don't react, just watch, make them feel seen. And it spread. When the guards shoved an inmate, no one shouted. No one fought back. They just looked. Dozens of eyes silent, steady, watching. The guards slowed, their movements became uncertain. One glanced at another as if asking, is this working? Because dominance required a response, fear or anger or submission. But silence was something else. One of the guards raised a baton, as if to strike an inmate who had gotten too close. Ward's voice cut through the room, calm and clear. Don't. The guard froze, turned, stared at the human sitting against the wall. Ward didn't stand, didn't move. He just met the guard's faceless visor with a steady gaze. You hit him, Ward said softly, and you prove we're right. Right about what? The guard demanded, voice distorted through the helmet. Ward smiled, slow and cold. That you're more afraid of us than we are of you. The guard hesitated, baton still raised. Then slowly it lowered. The guards left, and in the observation chamber, alarms began to light up across Director Vale's console. What is happening? Vale demanded. The AI is flagging anomalies, her assistant said, voice shaking. It's detecting organized resistance behavior, but it can't identify a leader. It can't map a command structure. Then override the AI, increase containment protocols. Director, if we increase protocols, the system will isolate sections of the facility to prevent contagion. Vale's claws dug into the console. Do it. The AI responded instantly. Blast doors slammed shut across multiple corridors. Guard routes were automatically rerouted to avoid contaminated zones. Entire sections of the prison, including the guard barracks, were sealed behind reinforced barriers. And in the common area, the prisoners heard the doors lock. But not their doors. The guards' doors. The Quran veteran looked at Ward, eyes wide. What did you do? Ward leaned back, exhaling slowly. I didn't do anything, he said. I just made them think we were more dangerous organized than chaotic. He gestured to the ceiling, to the walls, to the invisible eyes still watching. Their system is built on one rule, contain the unpredictable, isolate the threat. He smiled. So I made us unpredictable, and now their own protocols are isolating them. The Alpha rumbled from across the room. The guards are trapped. Not trapped, Ward corrected, quarantined, Their own system thinks they might be compromised by exposure to us. He stood, brushing dust from his sleeves. "Congratulations, everyone," he said quietly. "You just watched them cage themselves." Silent. Then slowly, one by one, the inmates began to understand. The prison hadn't broken. It had inverted. And somewhere deep in the observation chamber, Director Vale stared at the data streams in horrified fascination. Because for the first time in Thalshan history, a human hadn't tried to escape their perfect system. He had turned it into a weapon. Part 4, the real experiment. For 6 hours, the prison existed in a strange, inverted state. The guards remained sealed behind blast doors, their routes restricted by their own containment AI. The prisoners moved freely through the common areas, not because the doors were unlocked, but because the system had stopped enforcing their movement. It wasn't chaos. It was something far more unsettling. It was order without control. In the observation chamber, Director Vale stood alone, staring at the cascading data streams that no longer made sense. Stress levels stable. Violence probability near zero. Command hierarchy undetectable. Her species had built empires on the principle that control required visibility, leaders, structures, chains of command. But the human had built something else. A system with no center, no throne, no single point of failure. Just distributed intent. She pressed a button, her voice echoed through hidden speakers into the common area, cold and precise. "Dr. Elias Ward, I know you can hear me." In the common area, Ward tilted his head toward the ceiling, expression calm. Around him, inmates froze, watching. Vale's voice continued. "You have disrupted our experiment, damaged our facility, compromised our security protocols." Ward said nothing. "What do you want?" He smiled, not with triumph, but with something quieter, understanding. "I don't want anything," he said softly, "because I already got what I came for." Silence on the other end. He walked to the center of the room, speaking not just to Vale, but to the entire directorate listening beyond her. "You didn't bring me here to learn how humans escape prisons," Ward said. "You brought me here to study how we think inside them." He gestured to the inmates around him, different species, different worlds, all watching him now. "So I taught you." His voice grew sharper. "You built a system designed to control through fear, force, and observation. You assumed that pressure creates chaos, and chaos creates dependence." He shook his head. "But you forgot the one thing humans learned a long time ago." He looked directly at the nearest surveillance node. "Prisons don't break people, they teach them." He began to pace, voice steady, deliberate. "You teach them patience, you teach them how to read patterns, how to spot weaknesses, how to organize in silence, how to turn restrictions into opportunities." He stopped. "You didn't put me in a cage, you put me in a classroom, and everyone in here just graduated." In the observation chamber, Vale's assistant whispered, "Director, what do we do?" Vale said nothing, because for the first time in her career, she didn't know. Ward folded his arms. "Here's what happens next," he said calmly. "You're going to open communication, you're going to negotiate, and you're going to do it because your own system has locked you out of sections of your own facility." He let that sink in. "You designed this prison to contain us, but I redesigned it to constrain you." He smiled, cold and sharp. "Every safety protocol you built to stop a riot, I turned into a trap for your guards. Every predictive algorithm you used to model our behavior, I fed it contradictions until it couldn't decide what was dangerous and what wasn't. Every surveillance system you relied on, I made it see exactly what I wanted it to see." The Quran veteran stepped forward, voice rough but steady. "He is right, you did not capture a prisoner, you captured a systems architect." The insectoid broker clicked softly. "And we were his materials." The massive alpha rumbled, almost amused. "You built your own cage." Ward raised a hand, quieting them. "I don't want revenge," he said, voice softer now. "I don't want bloodshed, I just want you to acknowledge something." He looked up. You tried to study us, but you can't study something that adapts faster than your models can update. He took a slow breath. Humans don't break under pressure, we learn from it. We take your rules, your systems, your cages, and we turn them into training grounds. Silent. Then finally Vale's voice returned, quieter now, almost uncertain. What are your terms? Ward glanced at the others, they nodded. Better conditions for all of us. Food, water, medical care, real standards, not lab rations. Agreed. A formal statement logged in your archives that this experiment failed, that human containment is not a solvable problem. A long pause. Agreed. And one more thing. He stepped closer to the surveillance node, voice dropping to barely above a whisper. You're going to release me, not because I escaped, not because you're afraid, but because you learned. Another pause. Then, understood. 3 days later, Elias Ward stood in the docking bay of a neutral station, watching a Thalshen diplomatic shuttle depart into the black. The Directorate had honored their terms. Better conditions for the prisoners, a formal acknowledgement, and his release quietly arranged through intermediaries, with no charges, no records, no fuss. He had left the facility the same way he had arrived, alone, unremarked, invisible. But behind him, in the archives of the Thalshen Directorate, a new file had been created. Classified, sealed, marked with a single warning. Project Containment Array 7 discontinued. Reason, subject inversion. Human behavioral adaptability exceeds predictive modeling capacity. Recommendation: do not attempt live experimentation on human containment psychology. The subject will not remain the subject, they will become the designer. Ward smiled as he boarded a human transport, disappearing into the endless flow of travelers, merchants, and wanderers that filled the galaxy's crossroads. He had no interest in fame, no interest in glory. He had simply done what humans had always done, across every prison, every war, every cage ever built. He had adapted, and he had taught the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Elias Ward returned to human space quietly, resuming his work as a correction systems consultant. But word spread, not through news channels or military reports, but through whispers in alien councils and locked files in a dozen governments. Never cage a human and expect them to stay caged. Because humanity's greatest strength was never brute force. It was never raw intelligence. It was the ability to learn from confinement and turn every prison into a blueprint for freedom. If this story changed the way you think about human adaptability, smash that like button right now. Hit subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss the next time humanity rewrites the rules of the galaxy. And drop a comment: if you were locked in that prison with Elias Ward, would you follow his plan or try your own escape? Next time aliens discovered humans don't have a surrender reflex the hard way. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do to a human is put them in a corner.